It's the Muldoons. We're back.
What happened to us?
We're back. We're back. Yeah, so we've had a little hiatus. We've returned to Afternoons with the Muldoons, but we were traveling over in Canada. We both got we both got a terrible cold, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Haven't had a cold in a few years, but it was the cold of the century. So that's over. That's done. We're back.
But we had a great trip. Hope that you've been well. Hope that, things been going good. We just wanted to get on here and go live today. And I see we already got some people hopping on. That's awesome. Say hello.
Hey.
Glad that you're here. So we had that little hiatus, which was great. But, it also really gave us some time to really think about like Afternoons with the Muldoons and what is that? And really, it's a live stream. It's really like our podcast. And it really is about, living your best life. But it includes everything from relationships to business to adventure, whatever it is. And so we're really excited about the new year and all the different things that we're going to unveil and roll out, including some cool guests. And we've already got a few people that have reached out that said, hey, I'd love to be on the show. Listen, if you've got a story that, you want to share that, is really going to make people think about where they're going, enhance their life, enhance their business, whatever it is, we would love to hear from you. So let us know. You can just contact us at support@findingextraordinary.com. So it's finding-extraordinary.com. So support@finding-extraordinary.com. That's all the housekeeping.
Got it. Yes.
So today, what are we talking about? Well, we are talking about it being the end of the year here. I recorded some content on it and we talked about it like, with the new year coming here pretty quick in the next
what is it, like 5 weeks?
6 weeks, something like that.
It's scary, actually, isn't it? Can we just take a moment and say how scary that is, that it's like the end of November already? This year's just flown by. So it's like, it's sorry, I was just going to say, when you're talking about the
interrupting, I know you're really good at that.
That's part of Afternoons with the Muldoons.
Yeah. That's part of the Muldoons.
That is part
afternoon,
of the
morning, evening, holidays.
That's part of the dynamic. No, but I was just going to say, this is the time where people really start reflecting about, oh my goodness, here we are nearly the end of the year again. Yeah. January's coming. So
that's it.
Keep it going.
That's it. So what we want to talk about today is something where, we get a time to reflect. We look back on our year and we think about, what were the wins and, what were the things that were the real big challenges. And so really two things, one, focus your attention on the things that went really well in your life this year, the things that you can be grateful for, the people in your life who really make your life rich. That's one thing. And all the things that you looked forward to and were able to experience. We're going to talk more about that before the end of the year. But for today, we kind of want to flip that around and take a moment and talk about, like, what is it that maybe you've been tolerating? And this seems like just such an appropriate time to ask that question. More importantly, for you to ask yourself that question. What have you been tolerating recently, or maybe for a very long time now, that, you've been just sort of settling for and inadvertently ignoring? Maybe it's a challenge at work, in your career, in your business, maybe in a relationship with someone or your inner circle, or maybe it's your standards, choices, decisions you've been making. Where, have you been tolerating things that you could improve upon?
Yeah. And I was just going to say, it's so liberating, because I know everybody that's watching this will have at some point come to a crossroads where, like Brian's saying, whether it be in a job, in a business, in a relationship, somewhere, you've come to a crossroads and you've gone, I'm no longer willing to tolerate this.
Yep.
And we know how liberating it is. I know I can think of many times in my life where I've had to make those kind of decisions, and it's so liberating. It can be scary when you have to let go of a certain situation, whether it be, like, let's say, for example, maybe a relationship, whether it be a romantic relationship or a business relationship, a friendship, whatever. You've been tolerating certain things, and you know that the only decision is to make a change, to let go of that, because you're no longer willing to tolerate it. It's a tough one, but it can be a life-changing experience. It's like a weight lifting off your shoulders when you're like, I no longer have to think about that or worry about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I know for me, I've tolerated, like all of us, there are some things that we're just going to have to tolerate, you know, like right from when you're a kid, when your mom's like, you're going to eat those vegetables, or your dad, before you leave that table. Right? You got to tolerate that. We got to tolerate things like the weather, whether we like it or not. If it's a shitty day out there, well, we're going to have to deal with it. It's the same with maybe things that are happening in and around the world that are beyond our influence or ability to change right now. We have to tolerate it, even though it's intolerable sometimes. But, one of the things that I tolerated for years in my own life was accepting and settling for less than I was entitled to or deserved. That was a hard thing for me to really come clean with myself, to realize, you know what, your standards are pretty low, and it was when I finally was able to break through that, which I'm going to make a point here with in just a second that we'll talk about. Um, you know, uh, it was when I got to that point. I don't even know what I said there. When I couldn't tolerate it anymore, but I had just dropped it so low, and I couldn't take it, and I realized that I need to do something about it. But how? Like, how do you actually raise your game? How do you bring your A game? How do you show up as your most best self, like, and achieve the things that you want? Because let's face it, we all want to, but a lot of us really struggle to do that. So why is that? Well, for me, what I realized is that it was fear that was holding me back. I was so worried about what other people would think or say. If I made changes in my life, they'd be like, what are you doing? You're fine the way you are, and things like that. And all this stuff that would go through my head. The fear of, what if it doesn't work out? What if I look like a fool? Maybe I do right now, but I'm doing it anyway. What if I'm not good enough? What if, uh, you know, all these things that go through our mind, but it was only when I got to a point where I'd had enough that I suddenly became courageous enough to actually do it, to go, I don't care, because I'm not tolerating this anymore. I'm going to make these changes. And in doing so, my life is so vastly different than it was a few decades ago. And I know that seems like a long time ago, but for me, a lot of that still reminds me and feels like yesterday. But, I'm saying that, everything that you're afraid of, um, it really, that's going to challenge you. What's waiting on the other side is probably everything that you really want and need in your life. So,
Well,
sometimes we settle for those,
yeah.
those challenging things that are happening in our life that we tolerate,
Yeah.
when in fact, it's so much easier to go through the challenges that we're going to have to deal with, what we want most, so we don't have to tolerate those things.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, when you said, your life is vastly different than it was decades ago, that's because of ongoing challenge and
Oh
ongoing
yeah.
change, right? Because I mean, I think, I'm reflecting back on a workshop that we did very recently with a great group of people. And the first thing that we talked about was truth, with getting really, really honest with yourself about looking at the areas of your life and going, what am I really happy with? And what am I not so happy with? And maybe just pushing it to the back burner and going, oh, well, it's just, that's how it is.
Yeah.
Right. Whenever you're able to break free and have that honesty with yourself, because like you always say, there's no secrets, right? Because you know the truth.
That's
You
right.
might be thinking you're fooling everybody else, but you know the truth about your situation. So whenever you have that honesty with yourself and go, look, this is an area of my life, or these are areas of my life where I'm really not happy, I'm really not satisfied, then having the courage to go, what am I no longer willing to tolerate? What changes do I need to make? That's when everything can change.
Yeah, I mean, that's the starting point for anyone who's watching this. By the way, if it's live, say live. If it's replay, say replay. Love to hear. If there's something that you want to change, if there's something that you've been tolerating and you don't want to do that anymore, what I found worked really well for me was just to first make the decision to
Mhm.
come clean with yourself. Go, I'm not having this anymore, without having to try and figure out the steps forward or the right solution or how to approach it or the right questions to ask or when to ask them and all these different complications that our mind comes up with that we want to try and consider before we action on something that we really want to change. You just start with making the decision to yourself, to say, yeah, you know what? No, I'm not willing to do that anymore. I don't know exactly how I'm going to change it, but I have made that concrete decision inside myself and my heart that I'm not going to do that anymore. And then from there, you really just have to think about, what are the things that I fear the most, and what is the worst thing that could happen as a result of it. And then you really do have to ask yourself, like, is it worth it? Especially in matters of the heart. There's something that we're unhappy with in relationships. Those are some of the most difficult and challenging conversations we'll ever have. But what I have found, I think what we found is sometimes those tough conversations lead to the best outcomes, and if you just even think about it, when, growing up and you would fall out with a friend, and you wouldn't talk for a while and you came back, it was like, it was, things were better, you grew, that friendship hopefully grew and expanded. And obviously sometimes those friendships maybe ended or went in different directions, whatever the case may be. But it's really having the courage to first get honest with yourself and say, I'm no longer willing to tolerate this. And then secondly, be willing to take intentional steps and intentional action to improve it,
Mhm.
and that understand that your intention behind it is not to hurt, not to harm, but to make things better. So as long as you know what your
Yeah.
intention is.
Yeah, I was gonna say, whenever we talk about the courage to take the steps to have the conversations we need to have or whatever the case is to make those change. Whenever you mention the worst case scenario, 9 times out of 10, it's never as
No.
bad as what we've blown it up to be in our mind. And sometimes the fear that's been holding us back, once you've actually had that conversation or done the hard thing, it's usually way easier and you feel so much better for it. And like you said, if it comes down to relationships, sometimes it does come down to relationships in a job or in your business or whatever.
Mhm.
You don't want to have that uncomfortable conversation, but usually it actually that's what leads to growth because we got to
Absolutely.
get uncomfortable if we want to grow. So that's one of the
Absolutely.
best steps we can take.
Yeah. And I mean, if you think about it, just look back, take a second, we thought about what are you tolerating? Well, think about the times in your life. Go back, to when you were challenged, you were facing something that was really testing your fear and testing your courage. Yet what you wanted most, you knew was on the other side of that. So something like, passing your driving test, walking up to that girl or that guy asking for a date or to dance, or asking someone, to be in a long-term relationship with you, or asking for a promotion, or saying, you know what, I'm no longer willing to stay in this role that I'm in. If it means leaving, then that's what I'm going to have to do. Whatever it is. If you think about it, there are times in your life where you've had to be courageous, but when you were that person, you ended up coming out the other side with what you wanted most. And that's really what it's all about.
Absolutely.
And recognizing that we all tolerate things to a certain point, but it's recognizing the things that maybe you've been tolerating too long that just are no longer working for you, that you're going to have to roll up your sleeves and do the hard work to make things better, and that you can trust that in the end, it's going to hopefully lead to the thing that you want most out of it.
Yeah, and I think that I've been having conversation with clients recently, and I think coming into this next year with all the COVID stuff, sort of, everything that we've gone through as a world, to do with that, it's like really coming into this new year, people are like they're getting back to wanting to live their best lives and really, really reflecting on what they really want and what they don't want. I just think this is honestly, it's a there's so much uncertainty out there right now. I mean, you only have to turn on the negative news to hear all about
Yeah.
that. But this is the time where you can decide, okay, am I going to get stuck with all of that, or am I going to decide, okay, what is the biggest thing? What do you have control of? You don't have control of any of that
Yeah.
stuff, whether gas costs a fortune and the world is going to implode or whatever's happening. We don't have any control over that, but we have control over our own actions and our own feelings and the decisions we make of where we want to go next.
Absolutely. 100%. Couldn't have said it better myself. And so, yes, in case you're wondering, maybe there's someone out there looking for people that want to do auditions for the Thunderbirds reality movie. Joe 90 and company.
Oh, we're wearing our similar.
Yeah.
Somebody pointed that out the other day, and I was like, our glasses are not the same.
No, mine are like flat across here. Mine are like the Joe 90s.
But you had to bring that
to
everybody.
If you remember Joe 90 or the Thunderbirds. Anyway, I'm just having a bit of fun. But anyway, it's great to be back.
Yes.
Thanks for tuning in.
Yes, we will see you again soon. Yeah, you know what? We'll be talking about this between now and the end of the year, looking at making 2023 the best year ever. Reach out to us. Let us know if you're if you're tuning in on the replay. If there's anything that you want us to kind of discuss going forward, let us know, because we always love to get your feedback. And like Brian said, we've got some great guests coming up on lots of different topics. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Absolutely. All right, everyone.